Let's do some variations on some strumming. Hi everyone, Steve Dempster here from Guitar Evolutions. I've been away for a bit, but back at it now, and I'll tell you why I've been away from it for a bit at the end of this video. So today what I want to do is explore doing variations in strumming over a song. I find very often students get hooked up in this notion that in general there's just a way to strum a song. And I'm thinking about songs that you would be playing around the campfire, you know. Ones where the nature of the playing are not necessarily defining that song. And I'll give you an example of that in a moment. But that's what I want to hit today, exploring what's possible, how to listen for what's possible, so that you ultimately will be creating your own strumming solution instead of asking that nasty question, what's the strum pattern for that song? Let's roll the intro and get at it. Okay, welcome back. Here we go. I've got a little tune queued up. It's actually a backing track that I used, or put together rather, from a group class that I did on songwriting, or that they did. They were participants in this songwriting workshop. And all of what you hear in the backing track are ideas that the students themselves came up with. They didn't even need to necessarily be able to play it per se. They would just give me a hint of the idea, and then I might just refine it a bit, give it some structure, and then build it up, and the result was this backing track. So I thought we would use this, but what I want you to do is pretend that this is the backing track to the love song of your life, let's say. It has a lot of meaning for you, and as a guitar player, you want to be able to strum along to it. So you love it to death, lots of other people love it to death, and you want to play it around the campfire. So that's what I want to explore. And some variations that you could possibly use to play the very same tune. There are no lyrics in this song. For good reason, of course. I was hoping that the kids would be writing lyrics, but that didn't happen. So we have a good raw backing track. And if you want access to that track, it's in the notes below here on the video. There's a link to that. Just give me your best email, and I'll send off the backing track to you right away so you can put some of these ideas into practice. So first of all, though, let's have a little bit of a listen to the track, and then I have some questions. We won't need to listen to the whole thing. It's about 3 and a bit minutes long, but I'll have some questions for you. So let's check it out. That's probably enough to get started with. So here is the question, and you may have an answer for me right away because you probably saw me doing this. And it's just this. As you're listening to it, are you perhaps tapping your hand on your lap? Are you nodding your head, tapping a foot, moving your body, doing anything at all naturally as you hear it that is a bit of a reflection of this musical entity that we call the beat? I call it the pulse. I won't go into why I make that distinction, but I think the pulse is a better term for what we're talking about. But it's simply, if you were watching me as I was listening, and a little later on into my listening, you started to see me doing this. And maybe that, I can't remember everything I did. I was also tapping my foot, but you may not have seen that because my foot's way down here and it's out of the frame, so you couldn't check that out. But it's that natural tendency to sort of participate in the song physically by representing, get rid of this echo, by representing this repeating pulse aspect of the tune. I'm going to suggest to you that when you're listening to a tune and you want to figure out how you're going to strum it, that's the quality you want to tune into first, because that's going to be the sort of the framework around which we're going to build our strumming solution. So once that's done, then I would go back and see if, because I was doing this, can I replicate that on the guitar by just hitting the strings? And I'm not going to play any chords yet. All I'm going to do is hit muted strings. So I got all my fingers, I've got all of them sitting on the strings. I am not pushing, they're just sitting there, and I'm just doing that. Okay? So let's listen to it again and see if I can do that. Here I go. So I can. Now, what's the point of that? I mean, it's not very interesting, is it? But the structural point of it is, can you keep that timing, that pulse, that you're perceiving by, you know, the motion of your body, or the tapping of your foot, or the clapping of your hands? If you were at a concert and that song were played, can you keep this going steady? That's point number one. Yes, I can. Okay, point number two. Well, to some extent, we need to assume that you're okay playing the chords of the song, and the chords are pretty straightforward. A minor to F to C to G. During a sort of a bridge section in the song, there is a D minor, and there is an E minor throughout the song as well. So the chords are not too bad, but we have to assume that you're totally good with making them so that you can put all your concentration over here. So now what I want to do is, oh, and by the way, yes, the chord progression for the track is also in the notes below. It's part of the backing track. So again, if you want to get access to that, just give me your best email and I'll send the whole kit your way. And you can practice this process because it's an important musical process to be good at. This time around, I'm going to cue up the song again. and I am going to convince myself that I can change the chords on time in relation to that repeating pulse that I was scratching out on the strings. I'm only going to do that. It's not interesting, it's not a strumming solution that I want to stick with, but it's a start. I'm not worried about this section yet. Okay, that's all I need right now. I'll worry about the rest later on. So what you're trying to demonstrate to yourself there is that you're capable at that tempo, your hand scratching out the pulse or the beat to the tune. Again, don't overthink that. That's what kind of comes out of you naturally just by listening to it. That's what we're cluing into here. So I have that going. And then the second thing I want to make sure of, once I know what the chords are and what their order is, I want to convince my strumming or my fretting hand that I can make those chord changes on time. Because if you can't, any hesitation making the chord over here is going to interrupt your ability to do strumming on this side. In other words, your ability to strum well is in a significant way dependent on how well you change your chords on time. If they're not changing on time, it affects the flow of the strumming. So I'm checking that out just by that simple down strum action that I'm playing. And I can do it, so I'm okay at that level. And I will assume I can also grab the D minor and the E minor just as easily in this example. Okay, so that's step 2. Step 3, once I can do that, this is a little more abstract, but people don't seem to have much trouble with it. I think it stands to reason, you can pick this up, that every time I do a down strum, and I go to repeat a down strum, as I've been doing, I have to bring my hand back up to do it. Duh. On all of the examples so far, I have not hit the strings on that upward motion. I'm just hitting down, and then down, and then down on the pulse. But why can't I take advantage of the up strum? Not worry about too much where I do it or how frequently I do it. I'm just testing out, can I do it? So in other words, if the A minor to the F went like this, why couldn't I do this? This is just me being creative. I'm deciding this for the time being. And I could do that for the whole chord progression, couldn't I? And you'll notice some things to pay attention to. The hand is just moving up and down. All I've decided is to hit this down and up motion at a certain point within the structure. Now let me go a little deeper into what I just said there. If I play just the beat or the pulse for each chord, I basically get this. If I played back over the backing track, you would see that unfold as I play through. And again, it's just representing that scratchy representation of the pulse, but just using the chords. I then need to be aware of how many times I was hitting the strings for each chord, because that's information I need to be able to manipulate this downward motion and ultimately put an upstroke in there effectively in some predictable manner. So what I'm looking to do is count those hits that are going down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., etc. And in this particular tune, it'll be that all the way through, and it often, more often than not, is that for just about every song you want to play. It could be 4, it could be 3, it could be 6, it can be 9. There are lots of different musical timing structures that we can use. 4, i.e. 4/4 time, you've probably heard that, is the most common. And that's what this tune is doing, just to keep things simple for now. Knowing that I'm hitting each chord 4 times, I then want to be able to say to myself, well, if I decided to do this, where that double hit occurred, the down and the up, I hit both directions, I want to know on which number I did that on. 1, 2, 3, 4. And in musical terms, we'd say, oh, I did that double strum on beat number 3 out of 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. I can do that. I'm aware of it. And don't worry if you have a bit of trouble doing this, because it's a learned process. As your ears learn to listen more deeply, you get better and better and better at identifying and becoming aware of these pieces of information. On that beat number 3, when I did the up strum, there is a language that we use in music to help articulate that, and we simply call it and, which is another way of saying the backbeat or the upstroke, whatever. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. 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 Right now, you could argue, this is where I'm going to go back into the math days of school. Don't get scared. Always looking for sort of that lowest common denominator. Notice that I said out loud 1, 2, 3, and 4. 3 and was just the double strum. In my mind, however, and because you can't crack open my skull, please don't do that, and read how I'm thinking about that, I'm actually thinking the same way on each beat. My brain is going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. That makes it easier for me to keep track of everything. I've gone down to a more, in terms of, let's say, computer screen resolution, I've gone down to more pixels in the same amount of time. So in this case, 2 pixels in 1 beat instead of 1 pixel. And in the time of that 1 pixel, or pulse, I can put 2 things, half and half of the 1. They have to be completed at the correct time. So my brain is thinking 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. But that isn't what you hear. What you hear is so that's part of the skill of being able to strum effectively, is holding these, I'll call it a scaffolding, holding the lowest common denominator, that's one way to think about it, scaffolding that allows me to make some decisions about what I might want to play. And although I'm talking a lot about it, articulating it as best I can with words, all of it is going on up here in the flash of a second. Doesn't happen right away in the flash of a second, but as you repeat the process, it's almost as if we're wired for it. It truly does feel that way. At first, just because you're naturally gifted for something doesn't mean all the wiring is completely in place yet. And humans are, to a great extent, naturally wired for music. Some of us work at it, some of us have never thought to work at it, and some of us, just never occurred. So anyway, these are some of the features that I'm thinking about now to slowly build up a strum pattern. And I could stick with what I just did. And I could say, hey, here's one variation of that song. And it would go like this as I play the tune. I'd go, and then I would test out, can I use that throughout the song? Maybe, maybe not. Let's see what happens if I do. Let's bring it back. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. There's our structure. That's this. And then you see how that works. Now here's the important thing. Even though I'm doing this, I can assure you there's nothing in the guitar parts of that song that are actually doing that. If there was an obvious strumming pattern, we'll call it that you could pick up on, it would be fun to try to mimic that. But again, you don't have to. You're providing an accompaniment to the song where the strumming isn't, the way things are strummed isn't the primary feature of the song. And now I'll give you that example where it is the primary feature of the song, and if you change it, you're not really playing the song. So here's one. Some of you may know that. Eric Clapton tune, right? Get the sound good, and that's a good example of, if I don't play it that way, or if I don't strum it that way, I'm not playing the song. They're out there, but usually for most people, that's not the kind of stuff they're talking about when they want to do this stuff. They want to just provide a strumming accompaniment to a well-known tune. For example, if I did this to that Eric Clapton tune, you'd say, no, that's not how it goes. 2, 3, 4. It's recognizable. Now it's interesting, I did this demonstration to a group class one time, and although the strumming had changed and it isn't the way it's done on the recording, one student stood up and said, but it still sounds nice. And they're not wrong, it still sounds nice. And you are free to play it any way you want. It's just that if you decide to play it differently than the way most people have heard it most of their life, that might not go over so well. People want to have some familiarity in the playing, so keep that in mind. But this example, what we're working with, is not that kind of thing. It's not the Eric Clapton thing, which is why we can come up with all kinds of variations on the strumming. So one possibility right now was this one. Now if you asked me, hey Steve, what's the strum pattern for your tune? Tune has no title. I could easily say, oh, it's this. And I'd be right, but it's not the only thing I could do. Because if you think about it for a second, all we're interested in primarily is making sure that we know where the beats are and that we can change the chords on time. From there, we can make up a lot of other possible variations. So let's try a variation. Whoa, that is some variation. Okay, so let's try this. Let's see what happens. We know that each chord lasts for 4 beats. We know that in the motion of strumming, it requires a downstroke and an upstroke. And down and up are the action of one of those beats. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. You can see my lap going there. You get that. And we did the double strum on beat 3. All of this is requiring awareness, musical awareness of what's going on a little deeper in the song. It's the stuff that most people don't listen for because they're just listening recreationally. They shouldn't do this. They should just enjoy the piece of music. So, why don't we just do this? Why don't we play, I'm just imagining now, why don't we do the double strum on beat 2? So it goes like this. That's different than the first one. Could you do it? I bet you can. Let's give it a shot. Now that section is a different section. We would probably want to come up with something that changes from what we've been doing. But what you come up with is still based on all these fundamentals. Where that pulse is, the fact that your hand is going up and down. You want to make some kind of a change. Now why? Why would you do it? It's just interesting to the ears. And it has a different energy to it, so we should reflect that energy in the song. That's what's going on. I wonder what would happen if we did another variation on this strumming. Remember, this is all just coming from you making the decision. You're not necessarily hearing this specifically in the song. And even if it were there, sometimes it can be very buried in the mix and it's very hard to hear it. But it won't matter because the variations still work well over the song. That's the whole point of this exercise. Let's do another variation. Oh man, those changes, those variations are hurting. But nonetheless, here we are back at it. So let's do another one. And we are skimming the surface of these possible variations. So these are very straightforward ones that I'm presenting to you, based in 4/4, and just either doing single strums on each beat or double strums. Where you do it is up to you, for now. So we could do, let's say the final variation will be, no, not yet the final one, but 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So we'll do double strums on beats 1, 2, and 3 and a single one. Hey Steve, what's the strum pattern? I don't know, could be this. 1, da, 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 da. Oh, but last week you said it was this. Yeah. And then the week before you said it was this. Yeah. And they're all right. Because you are providing an accompaniment to somebody singing. Often it's you. May or may not be. Okay, so let's give this a go. One, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3, 4, 1, and 2. So I played into that a little further just to give you a sense of what I might do there. But we're not talking about that section in this video. I just want to get you generally thinking about what the possibilities are here. So it sounds good. Some people might even say, you know what? Of the 3 that we've played, that third one sounds like it even fits better than the others. And that could be for a whole number of reasons. There is a certain vibe in the song where this kind of thing this continuous down and up of strumming seems to fit something that we tend to be hearing in it. But again, that's for another video. This right now is just kind of playing a bit with the math of everything. Oh, I use the word math in the context of music. I'm in trouble now. Let's do one more variation just to show you where we can take this and see how that sounds. Oh, now that was a gentler change. I like that one a lot more. Okay, let's try this. There is, once you get the basics of the structure of rhythm and the structure of strumming and how the two obviously deeply relate to one another, almost synonymous in some ways, you can start to play around with the possibilities. And one of the things that we do a lot is in this down and up motion that is, for our purpose right now, it's continuous from start to finish as a way of getting through a song. We can skip certain aspects of the downs and ups, and usually we come up with quite an interesting sound. So for example, on this A minor chord, I could go 1, 2, and 3, and 4. The way you count it takes practice. The way you count it and get your arm to play to it takes practice. And you know, it has to happen consistently over a period of time to get past the technical side of playing, so you can just kind of sit back and enjoy, yeah, this feels really good on a nice summer day with some friends and some lemonade or your beverage of choice, and it's just fun. But you have to walk through some training aspects to get to that place. It doesn't happen just out of the blue. Even to those that this comes naturally with, they still have to think about it to some extent. Okay, so let's go, watch the hand for a second as it just goes up and down. It's not going to change. I'll do that again. Now that sounds cool. If I sped that up, it has more movement to it than the previous ones that we've been doing. And it has that because we're eliminating usually certain downbeats on the pulse. We've eliminated a hit during that moment and have decided to come back into the stream of the strumming somewhere else. So for example, if I were to articulate to you what I was hitting and missing, I would do this. I'd go, well, let me see now. I'm going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4. So I would go 1, 2 and 3. I missed the downbeat of beat 3. 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So you'll see it in the PDF that comes with this and the backing track. You'll see how that's kind of printed out. But essentially, I was missing the downstroke of beat 3. And hitting the upstroke of beat 3. I was missing the downstroke of beat 4 and hitting the upstroke of beat 4. And once I started looping it, let me see if I was missing beat 1. Nope, I was hitting the downstroke on beat 1. Yes, it's a more advanced way of thinking about it. Yes, it is a more advanced way of thinking about it. Yes, it takes a bit more practice, but it starts to sound more organic almost, not as stiff as the other ones. So let's see how it sounds against the song. 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 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 3. When those upstrokes get emphasized, normally they're not, there's a new feel, there's a new freshness to the strumming. And as you get practiced emphasizing the upstrokes and all kinds of combinations, all of a sudden you're in a position where you do not have to come up to me or anyone else and go, hey Steve, what's the strum pattern for that song? And as you can tell, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of them going on, and it can continue. I could do things like this. Even though it can work, you may say, yeah, but it doesn't quite sound like the way the song goes. That's fine. Don't do it then. I could do this. No, don't like that one, Steve. I could do this. I could also do this. I could break the rule and hit everything downstroke with a muted strum. That's cool. I could play the whole thing with power chords. The point of it is there are always lots of possibilities to strumming, which is why I keep arguing the case when somebody says, what's the strum pattern for that song? I go, I don't know. Let's listen. And that's the last point that I want to make here. This whole exercise has been about listening. Not only to the song, because you're using it as an engine to drive your playing, but listening to what you're doing in relation to the song. And in doing so, if you come up with enough of these variations, you're going to find that for you, some of them sound better than others. They fit the vibe of the song better than others. And so you're going to take a mental note of that as a musician. You go, that's how I'm going to handle it around the campfire. So for me, I would play like this. possibilities here. Now I'm just adding in dynamics. Playing soft when the music is soft. Whoops. Playing loud when the music's loud. Like here. Now there was a whole bunch of variation going on in that as I was playing it out. Some of it I'm just responding to in the moment. Other bits I've sort of pre-planned. Paying attention to how loud and soft the music gets. That makes it sound even more interesting to the listener. So you can appreciate that when you sit down around the campfire and you want to invite people in for a sing-song or something, in my opinion, the worst thing you could do is to sit there and play one strumming pattern from start to finish throughout any song. Some level of variety is worth putting in, whether it's changing volume, we call that dynamics, whether it's changing the nature of the strumming, that's a rhythmic issue that basically we're talking about here. All of that adds to the interest to the music, makes people feel like it was a really good concert, and you know, they leave feeling really good. And you don't want to make it stale. So how do you get to not play it stale? How do you get these skills underway so that you can confidently come around to the fire and play knowing you've got a really solid way to play a particular tune? I've got some good news for you. I've been working on a membership site for the last 4 or 5 months, and I would invite you to click the link below, where that will take you to a page to sign up, essentially, to keep updated on the progress of the site, because that site, that membership site, is designed, and it will always be in design mode, to help guitarists develop these skills. And these are skills that often they tend to pick up on their own, which is great, but wouldn't it be something to have somebody lay out a series of routes that you can take to help get you from point A to point B to point C? That's what the site is all about. It is due to come out early September, 6 weeks or so, 7 weeks, and at least have some content for you there ready to go. It's a very reasonable monthly cost for the membership, and which it will be. We haven't decided on it yet, but it will be for sure. And if any of this was confusing to you, but you really want to dig into it, I would encourage you to get on that list and keep updated as to the progress. And in doing so, if you do happen to join up when we launch, because the launch is coming up soon, then you will enjoy a nice discount on your membership, which will be in effect forever as long as you're in the membership. So anyway, I wanted to let you know about that. I'm going to produce a few more of these videos as we get closer to the launch date, and hope to see you on the inside of that membership. It's called the Strum Hub. Until then, Steve Dempster wishing everybody a great day. I hope this was of help to you. If you liked it, you know what to do. Press the subscribe button, share it with friends, put the love out there in some form or another that makes sense, and let's move forward, develop our strumming and rhythm skills. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.